we'll go with the stuff everybody's talking about. Why don't we talk about Shedeur Sanders? Like,
Oh,
come on,
okay.
come on.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're jumping all over the place from the second pick to the 144th. But it was probably the second biggest storyline of the draft, if not the biggest. Was
I'd
how far
argue
he was
it was
falling.
the biggest. I definitely argue it was the biggest. Because, I mean, if you just look at the reaction, because you got to realize that, sure, when it happened, that Travis Hunter trade was huge, right? That was massive. But that was a one-day thing. People were watching Shedeur fall for, what was it, 2 or 3 days? And everybody was just going nuts. Like, you were seeing, like, personalities from not only the football side of the world, but all across sports reacting to it. And just...
Not just sports, either.
Yeah, like, it's insane. Because, like, as much as, like, everybody was worried going into this year of the fact of being that Shedeur Sanders is a bit of a personality, you don't know necessarily whether you can trust him with your team. I don't think anybody realized how little trust the NFL really had in a guy like that. Because for a guy who, I don't think anybody thought he was going to go top 10, but, I mean, there were points where he was in the conversation. Right? Like, that's an important thing to bring up. And somehow, he fell to the 5th round. That's insane. Like, I cannot personally remember somebody falling that far, ever. Like, I might be totally blanking someone out, but this feels unprecedented to me.
No, I think it is unprecedented. The other one that I can think of in my recent memory was Malik Willis. That was a big fall, but it was nowhere near this big. Malik Willis, it was like, he'll probably go in it was a similar kind of thing with Shedeur, where going into the draft, you think he'll probably go in the first round. There's potential for a team who really needs a quarterback to take a chance on him. And he ended up falling to like the back end of the 3rd. And I was really surprised at that at the time. But this, it is unprecedented in that way. But it's not necessarily like I think it's just a perfect storm of factors coming together. And I think it's with the last name, with all the media reaction around it. When you've got Mel Kiper going on air with Shedeur as his number 1 player over Cam Ward, and him being like, basically, everybody is stupid except for me because this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady. I don't even know if that's hyperbole. I think he did compare him directly to Brady. But you have all of that, but I think it can be a little bit simpler when you look at it. And so there's a couple of factors here. So to illustrate the first one, you say everybody's talking about this. One of the people who is talking about this is the President of the United States. I don't know if you saw this. What Trump tweeted about it. Yep. So here's Trump. Trump was up grinding day 2 of the NFL draft, and here's what he said on his own little social media platform. He said, "What is wrong with NFL owners? Are they stupid?" All caps. Deion Sanders was a great college football player and was even greater in the NFL. He's also a very good coach, streetwise and smart. Therefore, Shedeur, his quarterback son, has phenomenal genes, all caps, and is all set for capital G greatness. He should be, and I don't know why he did this, air quotes, picked immediately, all caps, by a team that wants to win, all caps. Good luck, Shedeur, and say hello to your wonderful father. So when I first saw this, I had probably the stupidest reaction anybody can ever have to something like this. Is my thought was, wow, Trump's really not grinding the Shedeur tape, because if he had been, he wouldn't have made the comment about him having phenomenal genes. And I had to take and I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? But no, Trump really wasn't grinding the Shedeur tape, because the Deion genes didn't translate to Shedeur. You kind of assume that because Deion is this athletic, like uber athletic corner, multi-sport athlete, right? That it would translate to his son. But it didn't really. Shedeur is not the kind of quarterback you expect when you think Deion Sanders' son at quarterback. He is like a Kirk Cousins type quarterback. That was the comp that everybody gets. Another comp that I saw was like juiced up Teddy Bridgewater. And it's like, those are not the kind of guys that you think about when you think about his phenomenal genes.
That is an awesome ceiling to say a guy has.
Yep.
Juiced up Teddy Bridgewater. That is awesome.
And the podcast that I heard that on, apparently when that person, I don't remember who it was, but when they said that to an actual NFL exec, they said, wow, that's really mean to Teddy Bridgewater, which maybe that should have forecasted what happened. But no, so the genes didn't translate. He's more of a pocket passer.
Yeah.
He's pretty refined. Like he's
wasn't the conversation?
Not
I remember hearing his. I like Mr. Donald J. Trump. I have not quite watched enough Shedeur Sanders tape.
You and Trump, not tape dogs.
Yeah, me and Trump need to sit down in a room and watch Shedeur Sanders tape. We need to get that done.
Trump needs to up his game tape consumption.
Yeah,
he's got to come up with better NFL draft tapes for truth for next year.
Might be talking out of my ass. Feel free to call me out on this one. But I remember hearing that his arm isn't necessarily what you would expect from a guy with the Sanders last name. Like, I remember hearing that while he is for the most part, a pure pocket passer, he doesn't necessarily have the elite arm that you would normally expect from that type of quarterback.
No, he's a distributor. He's a point guard. He can be a system quarterback, and he can be pretty, like, the ceiling is that he's like a league average to slightly above average quarterback. You know, that's why Kirk Cousins, I think, is such a good comparison for him, because it's like there will be times where Kirk Cousins is playing like before he got hurt, where you're looking at Kirk Cousins and you're thinking, oh yeah, this guy could be a top 10 quarterback. It's not like he's doing anything insanely special like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or a Mahomes or whatever, but he is playing the position with such precision where it's like, this is great. And that is where Shedeur has potential. But teams may not necessarily want to take a chance on that in the first round. They're the teams, because players like that don't go in the top 10, top 5. Yeah. Players who go in the top 10, top 5, at least now, maybe in like the 90s or the 2000s, like early 2000s, they would. But in the league we're in now, you need the kind of traits. You need to have a certain type of athleticism. You need to be multifaceted, because just being a pocket passer doesn't necessarily work in the way that you would want out of a top 10 pick. So then you go to the middle to the end of the first round for where he's going to go. What are the teams there? You're looking at like a Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers, last time they did that, they got Kenny Pickett, similar kind of traits, and they got burned, so they're not going to go back there. Giants trade up for Jackson Dart, maybe a little bit more upside if things pan out. Okay, you've gotten past the first round. Most people think, okay, somewhat surprising, but a lot of draft prognosticators would have expected that before going in. But then is where the character concerns come in rounds 2 and 3. Rounds 2 and 3, you're looking for a backup. Rounds 2 and 3, you're not going to start right away. Even guys like Jalen Hurts, some of the successes of that round, did not start right away. It's guys like Russell Wilson, where they do start right away, extremely rare. So you're looking for a backup, and why would you want a backup when immediately you pick him? You come in and you have all this media attention on you, all this spotlight for your backup, the role that is supposed to be you kind of grind along until you get your chance. So that's why he didn't go day 2. Was he a day 2 talent? Could he have been picked in the second round because of his talent? Absolutely. He probably should have been. But there's a certain point once you pass starter potential where teams are willing to take a chance and say, you know what, I'll take the media attention if this makes their team markedly better. Once that had passed, then the most surprising part of the fall happened, and that, I think, was because of the character concerns. So when you take all that together, like, it's surprising, but there is a reason for it. It's not like NFL GMs are colluding, like some people said. It's not like any of this, like, other conspiracy theories that are being floated around. It's an understandable set of factors, even if the result was kind of like mind-boggling in the moment.
Yeah, and honestly, to me, it just sounded like Shedeur Sanders was maybe a little bit more confident than he should have been in the fact that he would get picked high. It seemed like honestly, to me, it sounded like he kind of tried to put all his eggs in a few baskets, and those baskets didn't want him. The floor fell out of those baskets, and suddenly all of those interviews that he bombed, thinking he wouldn't need because he wouldn't be available. He would be off the board. Don't got to worry about it. Suddenly, all of those teams are like, we don't want this guy. And yeah, he just completely fell through the floor. When you heard all the stuff that was coming out in those, I believe it was day 2 and day 3, like you said, when the personality stuff started to come out and stuff regarding how his interviews went with teams. I think it started to make a lot more sense because when you're just looking at the talent, you're absolutely right. He seems like a first round to second round guy. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the second you hear that he has any personality issues, yeah, you don't want him as a backup. You want somebody who's calm. You want somebody who's going to be ready to come into a game if he needs to be. And you want somebody who's going to be able to hold a clipboard for a year. And I think there are a lot of worries that Shedeur Sanders isn't that guy. He's going to bring a lot of attention. He's probably going to have more cameras on him than your starter, depending on who the starter is. Like, I don't know. I totally get why a lot of teams passed on him. I totally get why a lot of quarterbacks who a lot of people probably would have thought were less talented and had lower ceilings got taken before him. And it's probably just as simple as, if you're choosing who you want to put on a bench for the next year and learn behind your guy and actually be able to get something from that, there's probably a better chance that a Jalen Milroe or Gabriel might be able to learn more from that experience than a guy like Sanders, who might be just basically counting the seconds till he's on the field.
Yeah, and you bring up Milroe, the other side of it, and this again comes to like the ceiling floor conversation, because Shedeur high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. The other reason you take a shot at a quarterback in the second, third round, if you're not looking for them to just be a backup, it's because they're crazy unrefined but have a crazy amount of talent, right? The top 10, top 5 guys, it's like they're more or less refined, or they just have like an insane amount of talent, where Jalen Milroe, very unrefined, like there's games where you're like, you can't hit the broadside of a barn, but that athleticism though. And that's why the Seahawks took him, right? It's because you hope that in 2 to 3 years he can become something. That's not the case with Shedeur. With Shedeur, it's he's pretty much a finished product. Like, there is not likely going to be a ton of room for growth the same way there would be with a Milroe. So if that's your mindset, like it would be for the Seahawks and a bunch of other teams who are probably interested in Milroe, then you're going to go for a guy like Milroe over Sanders, and it just makes sense. Like, again, as a Seahawks fan, I would have been way more disappointed if they drafted Shedeur than if they drafted Milroe. I think it was the right choice, and that's another reason why he starts to slip. It's just kind of the perfect combination of factors where, you missed his threshold and then the bottom just falls out.
I think for the Browns, this kind of works out really well because obviously if you do get something in Shedeur, and he does work out, and you got what again Mel Kiper thought was the best player in the draft in the 5th round, then I mean. Is this not the best draft in Browns history? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the tough thing when you see talent like Shedeur fall this far, is if he does work out, the guy who grabbed him is going to look like the smartest person in the room. You just, like, bought yourself a job for the next 20 years off this decision, right? And on the other side of things...
or it just balances out the Deshaun Watson trade and you're back to even.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fair. Fair.
One of the best moves in the NFL the last 10 years, and the worst move.
Well, I was gonna say, on the other side of it, in the 5th round, like, what? Like, if he's pissing you off and all the cameras aren't worth it and he's being a pain in the ass, okay, cut him. Who cares? It's a 5th round pick.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, and I wish... With that in mind, I wish he had maybe gone to a team that has a bit of a stronger culture where, the Browns aren't necessarily the best at that. They don't have the best track record of developing quarterbacks, of just culture in general, of, like any of those hallmarks that you might say could sustain a personality like Shedeur. You've kind of seen them go out of hand. Like somebody you brought up before the podcast, Simon, like Manziel. Like, how'd that go in terms of like a culture to bring him in? Where... versus like if you think of him going to a team like Bill Belichick's Patriots, if there's any team that could kind of like set him straight, and Bill's done that in the past with some of those guys who have bigger personalities, but they were able to thrive under the team of the Patriots. That's not going to be the case in Cleveland, and also with how Cleveland kind of handled the draft already, with them taking a quarterback before Shedeur and then taking another one. And there was no quarterbacks picked in between them. They just basically picked 2 quarterbacks in a row, which is just strange. And if you look at the footage from the draft room when they pick Shedeur, it looks like Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry have guns pointed at their head. That's how happy they are to take Shedeur. So people think it may have not been their choice. It may have been an owner thing.
Well, obviously they wanted to listen to their president. They had to get Shedeur off the board. So I don't know. They were just doing they were doing their duty as citizens. One could argue.
Yeah. It's Brown Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're all going to the White House. Nobody's dropping out of that one, apparently.
Oh God, I still
No,
think
yeah,
that's so funny. I can't get over that. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, no.
It's incredible.
Now that's probably a good place to end the Shedeur talk. We can kind of get those are probably the two biggest ones, but there are some more interesting things that happened. I think